We are all more powerful than you might think. The sound you can hear now is actually the sound of my own heartbeat. And if you listen carefully, you can hear all of yours joining in. So you might think that this is just biology, but on a fundamental level, what's happening here is a transfer of energy. Every single one of us is a finely tuned energy conversion machine honed by millions of years of evolution. So in this second Christmas lecture, on our 80th birthday, I'm going to investigate how humans, other animals, and machines use energy, and whether we can supercharge ourselves to increase the performance of the human body. So welcome to the 80th anniversary Royal Institution Christmas Lectures. We are all walking, talking powerhouses. I'm Saiful Islam. I'm a professor of chemistry at the University of Bath. Like you, my body is converting energy all the time. So let me show you with this very sophisticated infrared camera. So this camera, unlike a normal one, it actually looks at heat rather than light. So give us a wave, this bit of the audience, come on. So as you can imagine, bright red means hot, and the blues are cold. So this side, I'm going to get you, give me a wave. Okay, let me see if I can get you into focus. Okay, so quite a few. And then over here, let me get into focus, another wave. Okay, so you're all, as you can tell, giving off heat. And actually, wait a minute, there's either somebody seriously ill or a bit dead. Oh, yeah, just a mannequin. Okay, as I said, we're all giving off heat. So earlier, we took a temperature of this lecture theatre, and it was 18.7 degrees Celsius. And this is the reading right now. So you can see that? It's 20.2. So within an hour, it's gone up a bit. So we are generating quite a bit of energy. But just how much energy are we all using? Is the human body a gas guzzler or an energy saver? I think it was great to hear our heartbeats just now. Every one of you is wearing a chest monitor, and I've got one too. It's kind of strapped here, feels a bit uncomfortable. And so what we're going to do, we're going to try and find out how much energy we all burn during this lecture. So these are a couple of laptops, and you can see it's got lots of little squares. And it's basically all the different energy monitors. So if you look, you can see just about the different numbers and the different data. And if you look at the screen, I don't know if you can see carefully, but right in the top right-hand corner where there's a little flame, that's the calories burnt. The bottom left where there's a little heart, that's your heart rate. And the central figure is basically just the energy consumption. But there is a twist to this live experiment. We want to split you up into two groups to do a bit of a large-scale experiment. So roughly from here, the central group here, to the right, okay, so it's going to be roughly here, to the right, you're going to be in the group what I'm going to call the movers and shakers. And you're going to be moving up and around all the time when you hear this music. Come on, let's get up, come on, up you get, come on. That's it, come on. on. Come on, you can do better than that. Right. Now remember, when you next hear that music, I want you all to get up and do exactly the same thing. Strut your funky stuff, okay? Right, the other group, you're going to do absolutely nothing. Actually, we've got a special scientific term for you guys. This group is going to be called the couch potato group, okay? So we're going to see the difference, because we've got the chest monitors. We're going to see the difference between the groups towards the end of the lecture. So as part of our 80th celebrations, we've invited Christmas lecturers past to help out. So to help us with this demonstration, it's a pleasure to introduce the 2007 lecturer, Professor Hugh Montgomery. He's up there. Hello, Hugh. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for
having me. How does it feel to be back?
Frankly terrifying, but less than it was last time, I think.
Okay. Well, we've got Hugh to do something a bit special. We're going to ask Hugh to do as little as possible. He's going to actually just basically lie down up there for the rest of the lecture. And we've got a special term for him. He's going to be called the lazy lecturer. So is that okay with you, Hugh?
Absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
We'll sleep
well,
down
hopefully
all week.
they've made things comfortable for you.
It looks lovely. I've got my coat, so it's
okay,
terrific.
Great.
Pillow.
So where does all this energy we're burning come from? So as a scientist, I love doing research and testing ideas. And I did an experiment on myself. So the experiment was that I would actually take a food diary. We would look at all the food I'd eaten over a whole week. And you can see it's a pretty mixed and dodgy diet. So this is the food I've taken in for a whole week. So I actually need a volunteer to help me, well, actually a couple of volunteers to help me scrape it in. So if you want to come down, yep. And one more, so in the purple t-shirt, yes, if you want to come down. So can I take your name? Iggy? Tally. So we've got Iggy and Tally. So you can see this is some of the dodgy food I've eaten, some of it better than others. So we've got a special task for you. We're going to actually ask you to pass on the food to Iggy, and he's going to put it into that container there. So what we've got is some scales, a container, and just do it as fast as you can. And if you just pass it on to Iggy, and we just get that food into that container.
Do I scoop it in?
Yeah, just scoop it in. So we're just going to measure it later. Just get it into that container, yep. So you can see, actually I'm quite keen on muesli. There's quite a bit, I don't know how I ate so much soup. So we've got there, then, okay, and then, I think that's too much bread. Okay, come on, just carry on doing it. You can do that. Come on. Okay. Okay. Right. You just carry on doing that. And if you can't reach over, there's some stuff. Yes, there's some stuff underneath there. So while they're doing that, so I'd like you to welcome, to analyse the results, last year's Christmas lecturer, Dr. Kevin Fong. Yes.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
How's it feel to be back in this theatre?
Do you know, I really, really wish I was giving the lectures this year.
You're welcome to take over. Yeah,
I was kidding. You can do it. This is your weekly intake.
It is.
I see.
It is. So we're getting them to pile it in there, and I think they're nearly done. So, yeah, well done. So I'm going to make that easier for you. Why don't you get it in there? Go on. So, what do you think of the diet?
Honestly, as a doctor, this is not good, Saiful. There's a lot of pizza in there.
I know.
Chocolate.
Well, it's only one piece.
Do you want a bit? No.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not exactly your 5 a day in there,
I
is
know.
there?
Actually,
There's a lot of
what
beef
is lacking?
burgers.
You're right. Is the fruit content. I don't know what happened that week. I think I was stressed by these lectures, actually.
Yeah.
So we're nearly done. Well done, you two. Well done. We got one more. This is it. Ah, thank you. Should we thank them? Yeah. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to try and weigh the amount of food that's actually gone in, and it's, what's the reading there? It says about 5.5 kilos. So that's roughly I've had over a week, so not too bad.
Well, yeah, not too bad in terms of quantity. Pretty
not
poor in terms of quality. Yeah, yeah.
Well, as a scientist, you'd appreciate this. I like to do the proper science. So not only did we look at the food going in, we also looked at the food going out. So, any volunteers who want to help me scrape this in? Any volunteers? No surprises there. Yes, it should be something I should do. So, let me do this.
So look, I know I was famous last year for drinking my own urine, but this is really pushing it. I mean, really.
I'm going to use this spoon here. So let me try and get it in there. Oh, yes. Oh, let's get it in.
Saiful, have you literally got me involved in a crap demo
Yes.
here?
Oh, no. It's chocolate. What do you think? So, shall we take the reading?
Okay, so you got about 1.5 kilo, 1.6 kilo.
Yeah. And it was...
and you had just short of 5 kilos of food in
yeah,
there?
about just over 5. So why the difference?
Well, so you've got about 5, let's say 5 kilos of food and about 1.5 kilo of out
Yes.
poo there. So what, we've got sort of 3.5 kilos
Yeah.
difference. And honestly, most of that food actually is water. And that's absorbed by your body. But then the rest of it, you use what's in the food, the protein in particular, to build your body, to build the organs of the body, to grow you. But most of it is used in generating the energy that drives you and everything you do. So there is some point in eating that terrible diet of yours.
Okay. Well, thanks for helping out on this particular slightly unusual demo. Thank you, Kevin Fong.
Yeah, I won't shake your hand.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, up again. Right. Thank you, movers and shakers. So exactly how much energy is in the food we eat? Burning food is a bit of a tradition at the Christmas lectures. If you look at here, there's Kevin again, doing some burning there. It's a good way to find out how much energy food contains. So we're going to do something I've called the Great Energy Bake-Off. So food has different components, and for this I need a lab coat and some glasses. So it's got fat, sugar, and protein. But I wanted to look at them separately. So to help them burn, we're going to soak them in liquid oxygen. So just to let you know, it's the food that's burning, not the oxygen. Okay, so we'll also see it. I think we've got an infrared camera, that's it, over there, and it's going to monitor the flames given off when I burn these separate food types. So I'm really keen on this torch. So, we've got some liquid oxygen. So we're going to start off with some sugary substance, and you can see this here. So we've got meringue on the left, some protein powder in the middle, and lastly, for the fat, some pork scratchings, okay? Let's start off with the sugar, the meringue. Okay, so off you go, and I'll get this flame. It's a lovely flame. Yes, great. So I had a bit of a flame. So let's move over to the second one, protein. It's a protein powder. That's pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah, that was great. So, and then lastly, the pork scratching. This is our fat. So this is our last one. Come on, that deserves applause. Come on, yeah. Yes, so this is some replay of the infrared camera, and you can see, look at the temperatures it got to. That fat went up to 556 degrees Celsius. Pretty hot. So, so you can tell which one won the Great Energy Bake-Off. It was clearly the fat. But we can usually measure, I mean, that's obviously a lovely, lovely display, but we can measure energy from burning much more accurately than just using an infrared camera. So let's look at the values you would get from the different food types. And we've got a special energy meter to display that. But it's not any old energy meter. It's an energy meter in units that hopefully you can all understand. It's in AA batteries. Units are usually kilocalories and kilojoules. So for meringue, what do we get? So let's have a look at meringue. About 25 AA batteries. Protein or whey, we've got also 25. Lastly, I think you can guess what you'll see with fat. So lastly, fat. What's the value for fat? It's, look at that, 56 AA batteries. So it's over double the other two. We can tell this if you look at the number of kilocalories on the packaging of fatty foods. They're a lot higher. And that's because a kilocalorie is simply a measure of energy. I mean, have a look next time you go food shopping or look at the sweets and crisps that you eat. So not all foods are this energy rich. And not all animals have evolved to eat like us. I'd like you to introduce you to two very special guests. They're strange and exotic creatures, but please welcome them a bit quietly, okay? So, yes. Yes, a gentle clap, that's it, nice. Okay, this is Faith, and this is Bonnie, the goat, and the handlers. It's nice to meet you. Alice and Tom, thank you for coming in. I describe them as exotic. Perhaps they're not quite exotic, but they are remarkable animals. It's to do with their digestive system. Their digestive system allows them to eat food and access energy that we can't, all of us. They're called ruminants. What would be nice is a volunteer to come down and feed them. Oh, yeah. Why don't you come out to, yes, you want to come down? Do you want a quiet applause? Quiet. Right, can I take your name?
Samuel.
Samuel. Okay, Samuel, you've got some, I think we've got some...
Spring greens.
Spring greens.
They're very partial to it. You take a small handful.
You carry on feeding. So they eat spring greens, and they also eat hay, as you can see there. So how do they break down that tough material? They have a very special extra stomach where bacteria ferment their food. This breaks down tough plant cells that we can't digest. Oh, very sweet. They even bring up food from their stomach back into their mouths, so they can actually chew it all over and over again. I'm not sure if any of you would like to do that. But hay has a lot less energy than pork scratchings. Faith, the sheep, has to eat 3 kilos of hay a day just to get enough energy to survive. And in the fields, she must graze for up to 7 hours a day. That's a huge amount of time and a huge amount of hay. So let's all thank all of them, but our quiet claps. Okay, let's quiet. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Tom. Okay, thank you very much. Bye. Okay. So if our diet was just hay, that hay there, we'd need to eat 4.5 kilos a day. And mealtime would take forever. Can you imagine munching through all that? Oh no! That's okay. So the high energy density of our food is one of the key factors in how humans have time to do all the things we're really good at. We've done the sums, and I'll show you the results on our energy meter when I jump over those. So for example, if we want to play the piano for an hour, it's going to be 91 AA batteries. That's in an hour. If standing up and painting takes 152 AA batteries. Just walking in an hour takes, let's have a look at walking, 127 AA batteries. So where does all the energy in the food that I ate earlier on, where does it all come from? There's a fundamental principle of energy. You can't create it or destroy it. It can only be converted from one form to another. So the food itself must have got its energy from somewhere. So let's follow the chain of energy and find out. And to show you, I've got another exotic creature, a salmon. It's a bit of a violent salmon. So this salmon, it wasn't part of my weekly diet. Where does the salmon get its energy from? For this, I need 3 volunteers, and maybe somebody from this side, yourself there, and one in green, and one final one. Yes, one in the blue t-shirt. Yeah, come on down. So, hello there. Can I take your name? Lizzie. Lizzie. Can I take your name?
Isaac.
Isaac. And what's your name?
Amar.
Amar. Okay, I'm going to put you in sight of height order. So if you go that side, you go on that side, and if you come across there. So get in a straight line, okay, we want a nice clear picture of you. So I'm going to get you to hold the lovely salmon, okay? All right, so this is a bit of a food chain, so we want to see really where these different creatures get their food from. So I would like you to reach in there. So what does a salmon eat? Salmon eats, put your hand in the mouth and pull out what the salmon eats. It eats basically smaller fish. And in this case, it's just a mackerel. But what does mackerel get its energy from? From its food. So why don't you stick your hand in and see what you can pull out. Yes, that is phytoplankton, okay? A good representation of phytoplankton. So phytoplankton is just very tiny marine plants. But like all plants, well, they get their energy from the sun. So you can follow the same chain of energy for almost any food type and any food you choose. But it always ends up at the sun. So every single bite of food we take is effectively solar powered. Great. Well, thank you, all 3 of you. Thank you for coming on. So let's thank them again. Right. But it's not just our food source that is important, it's our size as well. So let me get this out. So here we have a mouse. Sadly, it's an X-mouse. Well, these are the X-mouse lectures. So unfortunately, we wanted to use a real mouse, but we were a bit scared that it might actually die of shock seeing you lot. But the reason I wanted to bring out this mouse is that it eats about 1/3 of its own body weight every single day just to stay alive. If we humans ate 1/3 of our body weight a day, what would it look like? It would mean eating about 150 cheeseburgers a day if we were equivalent to that mouse. The difference is that really small animals, like this wee mouse, has to eat a lot more than large mammals per unit weight. And that's because the mouse has a relatively large surface area compared to the volume of their body. So this means they lose a lot more energy as heat. So in this case, size does matter, okay? You're doing really well there. So earlier we saw that burning food releases its energy, but we obviously don't actually burn food inside our bodies. So how do we turn something like that salmon into energy that we can use? So I'm a chemist, and thankfully a lot of this is chemistry. So up on the screen is something I'd never thought I'd see. This is a view of my own, I stress, my own lower intestine from the inside. To get this image, I had to swallow a very clever device, a very special device. This isn't the actual one, but it looks a bit like this. If you have a look, that is what is called a capsule endoscope. And essentially, it takes photos of my inside in real time as it was going through the body. So I had to starve myself for 2 days to get a clear image. So let's go back to the beginning of the footage, and let me talk you through what happens. You can see these are my fingers. I'm holding the capsule, and I'm actually, there's my teeth. You can see it just past my tongue, and off it goes down that clear channel. And it's got straight, actually, the guy who was operating at the local hospital said it went down really quickly. I really had starved myself. So it went down into the lower intestine, and there it is. Usually you would see lots of kind of food along the way. So what is happening within my mouth and in the stomach? Well, it's basically some chemistry. There's some enzymes that break down complex molecules, and they break them down into sugar called glucose. And in my lower intestine, that glucose goes across the intestine walls straight into my blood. So the blood carries the glucose into muscles and organs where it reacts again to give them energy. I should say we stopped the image there. I didn't want you to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, yes. Off you go, yes, keeping them fit. That's it. I'm going to join in this time. Very good. Okay, so we've just had some really active people, so I think it's time to catch in on Hugh. Hugh, how are you doing? Right, so what does this mean for our performance? Can we supercharge ourselves using sugar? The answer is sort of. Sugar gives you that quick burst of energy, that sugar buzz. That can be useful if you're doing a lot of exercise. I mean, there's a reason, obviously, that you don't see Andy Murray kind of snacking on pork scratchings between games. But sugar, as you probably know, has its downsides too. Those spikes, or that rise in sugar levels in the blood, aren't good for you long term. And if you take in a lot of sugar, it could end up being stored. And so how does the body store some excess energy? Well, we got a bit of a favour from a local clinic, and they kindly allowed me to borrow some real human fat. That is real. It weighs about 1 kilo. It looks a bit reddy because of the blood in there. But how much energy is in that kilo of human fat? So let's go over to the energy meter to give you an indication. So that kilo goes up to, yes, a massive amount. That kilo has 1,869 AA batteries of energy. That's a lot. You know, much greater than the stuff I showed you before. It would power me for 3 to 4 days. So this reminds us that humans are energy storage machines as well as energy conversion machines. So someone like me might be surprised to know, although you saw my diet earlier, I have about 10 times this beaker of fat on my body. It means that if I was on one of those survival programs, I would survive up to several weeks without eating. But long term, we obviously need to strike a balance between the amount of energy we take in and the amount of energy we use up. Otherwise, the excess energy leads to getting us overweight. So does our body generate any other forms of energy from our food? We've talked about heat, we've talked about movement, but there is something else. The human body is far more electric than you might think. To show this, I need a volunteer to help me play a little game. Yes, if you could come down in green, yes. Can I take your name? Isabella. This is Isabella, and while Isabella is getting hooked up, I'll explain what's going on. This kind of equipment here allows someone like Isabella to control someone else's actions using the power of electricity. And she's going to get wired up. On the other end, I haven't asked another volunteer, because it can be a bit weird and feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's a great pleasure to introduce and invite the 2013 Christmas lecturer to help out, Professor Alison Woolard. Hi there, Alison. Hi. Great to see you. Thank you, Alison, for joining us and helping out. What's it feel like being back here in the lecture theatre again?
It feels great to be back, but not in the driving seat.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we've got a cup of water.
Okay.
And why don't you just take a sip now?
Sip, right, okay.
Because we're going to show...
No tricks?
No tricks
right.
yet. That's fine, that's
Okay.
all that's clear. So,
Yeah.
Alison, if you want to show us what they've done to you outside.
Yeah, they've put these stickers on me. Yeah.
Okay, and they're all fine? Nothing painful?
No,
So
no,
what James is going to do is going to hook you up, and we're not
Right.
going to get started yet. So what's basically now, we're connecting Isabella to Alison. So we're going to maybe do a bit of a test at the moment. It's not on. I don't think it's on. So why don't you try and clench your fist and see if it affects her? Nope, nothing's going on. So the point is that when I switch this on, Isabella, in principle, and hopefully in practice, can actually stop Alison having another cup of water. So if you pick that up,
Okay.
let's have a bit of a drum roll. Okay, off you go. Try and drink the water.
Oh,
Go, really touch it. Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Three, move it. Right, you can stop now. I'm going to turn it down. So, Alison, looks like you've got a bit of a drinking problem.
I certainly have, yeah.
Right, so how did that feel?
Well, it felt very weird. So I felt sort of sparks here, like a bit of an electric shock, and then my fingers just went completely mad. I had no control over them at all.
Was it painful?
No, not really, just weird.
I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know what it feels like, but I want to try it
really
later.
Weird, yeah. I'm not usually so easy to control.
So, Alison, I know you're a biologist and we have discussed this, so tell me, what is actually happening? What's happening between Isabella and you?
Well, our neurons have evolved this remarkable ability to conduct electricity. So when a neuron or a nerve is activated, like we're doing here artificially, it causes a difference in the voltage across the membrane. And so really our neurons are tiny, tiny little batteries. And this difference in voltage triggers a wave of electricity that travels all the way down the neurons until it encounters muscle. And it causes the muscle cells to contract like the ones in my fist. And that stimulates the movement.
So do they know how fast that signal travels?
Well, up to about 250 miles an hour, so about the speed of a Formula One car.
So it's pretty fast.
Very fast.
So that's why that transfer was so speedy.
Exactly, yes.
Obviously that was a fun demo, but there are more kind of serious applications of this type of technology. Amputees, people who've lost their limbs, can actually control their prosthetic limbs using the power of electricity, a bit like this. So we're going to do one more demo just for, we don't need a drum roll this time, so don't do it yet. And Alison, I know, sorry about this.
Maximum discomfort.
Yeah, I know. We're going to make you do it again. So thanks for being such a sport. So, okay, go to Isabella. We're going to try and stop Alison drinking again.
Oh.
Come on, you do it. Oh no, all over a nice dress.
No.
Oh no, I'll turn it down. Right, I think we should give Alison a hand. Okay. So how much electricity do we generate? A single nerve firing produces a very small amount of electricity. We have well over 80 billion nerves in our brains alone. That's 8 with 10 zeros after it. This adds up to enough electricity to charge a smartphone in about 70 hours. So of course, we won't be plugging phones into our brains anytime soon. So we can use technology to generate electricity from our bodies. But what about our bodies themselves? How good are they at converting and generating energy? How powerful are we, and how do we compare to something like a machine? There's only one way to find out. Let's pit them against each other. Let's have a fight. Okay, so we need a professional for this. So please welcome Britain's human-powered land speed record holder, Ken Buckley. Hi there. So Ken, you've got this record. Tell us more about this record. What does that record mean?
So it's the British land speed record for human-powered vehicles. So basically as fast as you can get a human-powered bicycle to go.
Okay, so how fast did you get?
So we did a top speed of 76.6 miles an hour.
So tell me about the training you need to get to that kind of speed. What kind of training do you need to do?
So I do about 15 to 20 hours a week, of, mostly on the bike, some in the gym, and a lot of stretching and yoga and other stuff as well.
Okay, so what we've got here is we've got your bike,
Yep.
and we've hooked it up to an electrical generator. With electrical generator, with a difference. We've got it connected up to some devices. So we've got some lights, we've got a blender, and we've got a kettle here. And we're going to see if the human machine can help to power some real machines, okay? So we're going to get a top athlete. So I think we need a bit of a drum roll for this, don't we? So let's have a little drum roll, and off you go. So you can see the lights coming on, so that was straightforward. So lights don't need that much energy. So let's see if we've got the blender. Blender, no problem. For the kettle, it's very difficult to monitor the kettle, so we've got an infrared camera, okay? So we've got the kettle coming on, and that's the tough one. So this is the temperature of the kettle, 21.6 degrees, so it's cold water, or warm water. So let's see if it goes up. No? Can you get to 100 degrees? Okay, thanks Ken, let's stop there. Let's give him applause. So, as you can see, it was easy to get to the lights and the blender, but that boiling a kettle needed a lot of energy. And I think you're hotter than the kettle.
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
Actually, let's put the thermal camera on Ken. Let's see how it's looking. Look at that. Let's compare it to me, and I haven't been doing anything. That looked like tough work.
Yeah, that was hard.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Very much.
At the absolute peak, a highly trained professional can't even boil a kettle. So compared to some common machines, we're not very powerful. So can we improve our performance for the same amount of energy? Can we supercharge ourselves? To find out, I'd like you to welcome the 2010 Christmas lecturer, Professor Mark Miodownik. Great. Okay, Mark, if you come down here. So, Mark, what's it like to be back in the lecture theatre?
I can honestly say I would not rather be anywhere else.
Absolutely, I don't blame you. And if you just watched our cycling generator, how do you think you'd fare? Do you exercise much?
It's mostly brain power, I have to admit. Yeah, I sit.
You sit.
I sit.
Any
I look.
sports at all?
I cycle to work.
Cycle to
Yeah,
work.
I mean, I was
Oh,
looking
right,
at that
okay.
cycling there. I was thinking, yeah, I could do that.
All right. Well, what if we use these running machines to pit you against Ken, our cycling land speed record holder? Let's bring him on. Ken, are you there? Hi there, Ken again.
Hello.
This is Mark.
Hi, Mark. How's it going?
So we're going to do an experiment. We just want to see how much energy you're going to use. So we're going to start getting you kitted out. So if you could both get onto the treadmills. What we have here is obviously a couple of treadmills, but they're connected up to some monitors, and they're going to be putting on some masks. These masks are connected to a Vox machine. What it does is it measures, and you can see on the screens there, it measures the amount of oxygen that you take in and the amount of oxygen is given out. And why that's useful is that you can actually relate it directly to the amount of energy used, the energy expenditure. And that's the 2 E's you see on those two monitors. And we're just going to compare the two. So before they get going, a simple question. Who thinks that Mark will be using more energy than Ken? Hands up. Okay. So who thinks that Ken will be using the more energy? Oh, interesting. Right, so let's get the treadmill started. Okay, off they go. Okay, so let's see how they're doing. There is a difference already between the two, quite a significant difference. So let's let it run for a bit, see if we can tire out Mark, just from walking.
I'm actually embarrassingly... If I knew you were going to do this to me, I wouldn't have worn a three-piece suit, you know.
Okay, so let's begin to wind down. Should we stop now? Okay, let's stop them both. So you can see, if you look at the numbers, Ken is actually using more energy than Mark, which is interesting. I have to say, Ken has more muscle than you, Mark, and that is the main reason. Ken, being more muscular, he needs more energy to move. That's because his body has adapted to both consuming and generating more energy. As with everything to do with energy, you don't get a free lunch. So this here, ooh, nearly came off. This is when Ken is training. This is his daily diet. So Ken, being an athlete, is definitely supercharged. Ken can do more work than most of us. So let's thank Mark and Ken for doing this demonstration. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Yes, well done. Some good moves there, actually. So let's catch in on Hugh. How are you doing, Hugh? He looks very comfortable. We'll come back to him. So there are ways to supercharge our bodies and improve our performance. It's called training. What about increasing performance without training? Is that possible? There's a drug that many athletes take to increase their performance. It gives them better reaction times and helps them with their fatigue. It used to be banned, but use was so widespread it's now become legal. And I'm going to take some right now, live on this stage tonight. The drug is caffeine. Actually, you need some. It's nice and hot. So I was thinking about how to show you the effects of caffeine on reaction times. So please welcome our warm-up man, Matt. Great.
Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
So, Matt, I understand we got you to do something that was a bit difficult. We asked you to give up caffeine.
Yes.
For how long?
Well, even though I do love my coffee, somehow you convinced me to go for 2 weeks completely decaffeinated.
So no coffee?
No coffee, no chocolate, no tea. It's been a nightmare.
So you're completely decaffeinated?
I am absolutely decaffeinated, my goodness.
With that decaffeinated state, what do we do to you? We thought we'd test your reaction times.
Yes.
So you can tell us more about this. This is a Batak machine, I believe.
Yes.
So what do we get you to do?
This tests your reaction times by lighting up these different letters and numbers, and you've got to hit the one that's lit up as fast as you can, and then that repeats as some form of unusual psychological torture for about 30 seconds.
So I think we might have some footage. Do we have some footage of you doing something earlier?
Yes.
So talk us through it. So there you are.
So there I am. This is me without caffeine at all for 2 weeks, and I'm doing my, can't even find it, there it is. I'm doing my best to hit the lights as fast as I can, and I'm doing poorly.
I think we've given you some coffee since then. Have we? We've given you some coffee?
Yes, so since that was recorded, I was allowed coffee for the first time in 2 weeks. I've had 3 coffees since that happened, and my brain suddenly feels alive again.
So what was the results from that?
29 buzzers hit in 30 seconds.
29?
So fewer than 1 a second, and that's me enjoying my coffee as when we were getting ready for the recording.
I love it.
Really enjoying it.
Yeah, I know, really enjoying it. So, so we're going to actually test Matt again after that, after he's had the coffee. So why don't you get into position, but don't start yet. We're going to get into position. I think you know how to start it off, do you?
Yeah, I hit E, and then it all breaks off, yeah.
So I think this really does deserve a super duper drum roll for everybody. So come on. And go. Yes! Yeah! I have to congratulate. So, what an improvement! What an improvement! So that caffeine really had an effect there.
I feel alive.
You feel alive. So how did it feel that time?
Amazing. Like everything narrowed in, and I was just seeing the machine, seeing the lights, and I was almost moving before I was thinking.
Okay. Well, let's thank Matt once more. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Obviously, that was just a demonstration. It was a sample of one. But there are proper scientific studies with larger sample sizes that have shown that caffeine does have a very strong effect on performance. It increases activity in the brain and tricks the body into releasing adrenaline. It can improve your reaction times by up to 10% and even reduces your feeling of fatigue. But caffeine is no wonder drug. The increase in performance is tiny, but those tiny margins can make a big difference for professional athletes. But you're not, obviously, it's not going to make me Mo Farah. So far, we've looked mostly at improving the way our bodies use energy. But can we look at food itself? Earlier, we worked out how much energy was in each food type. But that didn't include how much energy it took to produce that food in the first place. So can we produce food more efficiently? So here's another cheeseburger here. We can do the calculations. Did you know that each burger takes the equivalent of 10 burgers worth of energy to produce? So all this to produce that. And that's a lot. So why is it so much? Well, wheat to produce bread needs irrigation and takes electricity, but it's the meat that takes the most energy to produce. So better take this away before our next beautiful guests come on. So this is definitely a very quiet welcome. In fact, probably doesn't need any applause. So this is Inky Minx here on your left, and her baby's with her, and she's called Jet, and the handlers. Thank you very much, Felicity, and thanks for coming along. Aren't they lovely? Obviously, to get to this size, Inky would have had to eaten about 2,025 kilos of grain. We've got the real stuff now. So in general, actually, I think Inky has to close her ears, doesn't she? In general, to produce just 1 kilo of beef takes 7 kilos of grain. And growing grain requires fertilizer, irrigation, and transport. So in pure energy terms, this isn't a very good trade. I have to thank the handlers and Inky Minx and their beautiful little calf to come in. So thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Cows also produce something else from their food. Let's see that with a simple demonstration. So this is a bag or a balloon that contains the same amount of methane gas that Inky produces every single minute. Actually, about the time she was in the lecture theatre. So did you know most of this comes from burps or upwindies, as my children call them? This balloon contains a lot of energy that normally goes into the atmosphere. Shall we take it away or set it alight? Set it alight! Thank you. I've got a pyrotechnic expert to do this for us. I think another drum roll is worthy here. So another drum roll, come on. Yes! Come on, big applause. What a great flame. That's fantastic. So as we've seen, in terms of using energy, producing meat isn't particularly efficient. So are there alternatives? Interestingly, there's a source of protein just as energy dense as beef, but it takes less than half the amount of energy to produce. And luckily for you, we've got some with us in the lecture theatre today. And these are insects, crickets and mealworms. Would anybody like to try one? So let's have a look. So if the camera there, look. Look at that. They're perfectly safe to eat. So if you want to try them out, I think they're going to go around. I'm going to try one of the crickets. They're great. No. Try them out. There's some over there. Sue's tried some. They're nice. So what do you think? Have you tried them? Okay. I've tried them, and I think they're actually they're quite tasty. So that stuff, that really is the fuel of the future. And it's time to get the results from our big energy experiment. Okay, so we're going to go from the active group to back to the lazy lecturer. So Hugh, how are you doing, lazy lecturer?
I've done very well, thank you very much. I've had a lovely sleep this evening, thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had a nice, comfortable time. Great. I'll come back to you in a second. Backstage, we've added up the numbers and the results are in. We've taken a sample of you lot and we've got the final figures, which has been fed to me. Did you know that in terms of AA batteries, the couch potatoes, the amount of energy used is 4,498. In terms of AA batteries for the movers and shakers, it's 4,942. So really, the half of the lecture theatre that was moving about all that time, the movers and shakers, used just a bit more energy than the team who were just sitting. So again, the overall difference is pretty small overall for all of us. So let's go to our lazy lecturer once more, Hugh, who's been lying down, doing nothing for the whole lecture. Well, actually, you've burnt energy doing absolutely nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, life is expensive. So even at rest there, my heart will be working at between 1 and 2 watts. When the explosions went off and I got a bit more excited, probably running up to 4 or 5 watts. Brain alert is running around 20 watts, but maybe a little less when I was sleeping. So there's constant activity going on. Even the work of breathing will be consuming around 4 to 5% of your total oxygen consumption. So even sleeping takes quite a lot of energy.
Well, thank you, Hugh, for snoring through my lectures, and thank you for coming along to my lecture today. Thank you, Hugh.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Should we applaud him? So why didn't the movers and shakers use loads more energy than the couch potatoes? Well, just keeping our bodies warm and alive takes a surprising amount of energy. Keeping our heart pumping uses 5% of our daily energy. Our brains, 20%. Our liver, well over 20%. In fact, about 70% of our energy goes on simply keeping alive. So what's the total amount of energy we use over a whole day? If we scale up the results from the audience, it comes to approximately 900 AA batteries. If we divide the amount of energy we use over a whole day by the number of seconds, we get a power rating. This figure tells us how much energy it takes for all human activity. Our movements, our thoughts, our dreams. The answer may surprise you. It surprised me. Each person has the same power rating as a 100-watt light bulb. That is clearly a light bulb moment. And next time in our 80th anniversary Christmas lectures, we're going to try and make a mobile phone last a whole year without plugging into the mains, and also break a world record. Thank you and good night.